Hey guys, today on JD Cars, we'll be installing this custom wireless smartphone charging pad in my 2012 BMW F30. Alright, so what prompted this project and idea of trying to install wireless charging? As you know, if you watched the video of me buying this car, I received a second set of wheels and tires with the car, and while seemingly insignificant, I also received this little tray, which as you can see here, pops right into place in the cup holders, which as you can see increases your storage space, about enough room to toss your cell phone on here. And I thought immediately how cool it'd be if I can just throw my phone down on here and have it start charging just like that, opposed to using the USB connection, which I personally have had some difficulty with just because the port on my iPhone has a bit of play in it, so whenever my phone moves, the music disconnects. It's a whole deal. So, I don't know, we're gonna give this a shot, we're gonna see if it's possible. This is definitely gonna be a fun project. I'm excited to see if it works, so stick around throughout the video. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't have that much knowledge on wireless chargers, so I found this extra one in my desk, flipped it over, pulled up and removed the screws, opened it up, and this wireless charging induction coil was removed, as you can see here. And the entire assembly is amazingly thin, as you can see here. It's about the thickness of a credit card. So I was like, man, I have to do this. The only issue with this smaller setup is if the phone moves back and forth at all, the charging will stop. So I was lucky enough to find this wireless charging board that has not only 2 but 3 wireless charging coils, as you can see here, which gives us a lot more coverage compared to this little circle, meaning that if the phone slides back and forth at all in the tray, it will continue to charge, which is going to be key to this working. Alright, so here's a rundown of everything you'll need if you want to do this project yourself. Of course, you'll need one of these cup holder storage trays. I believe this is the OEM BMW one. I believe they're between $30 and $40. And after lots of searching, I was able to find all of the necessary parts on Amazon just to make that as easy as possible. So of course we need this 3-coil wireless charging board. This is about 20 bucks on Amazon. The build quality is very solid. You can find it for cheaper elsewhere, but it's going to take about a month to come from China. So I just went with Amazon Prime. You'll then need a 12 volt to micro USB adapter. I think this step down was like 10 bucks. As you can see there, I also opted to get the 90-degree cable, which is going to allow us to route our cable more easily. And finally, we'll need some 3M outdoor mounting tape, or any double-sided adhesive for that matter, in order to secure the tray after removing the spring-loaded mechanisms. So we can push these two aside for now. We need to focus on the wireless charging board and getting it mounted up to this tray. Quick interruption, just got my favorite type of delivery from the post office here. A JD Cars merch delivery. You guys have probably seen me wear this JD Cars mesh trucker hat in other videos with the camo logo, as you can see. My dad asked me to order one, and I ordered up a sample of the first JD Cars classic dad cap, as you can see here. That's awesome. I think he's gonna love that. I'm gonna run inside and give this to him. Pretty cool. We got the American flag on the back there. But yeah, this looks pretty sweet. I actually want one of these for myself. If you guys want either of these hats or a sweatshirt, as seen in other videos, definitely be sure to check out jd-cars.shop for all your JD Cars merch. Use discount code 10% off 2019 for 10% off your entire order. Alright, let's get working on this wireless charging tray. Now, of course, looking at this wireless charging board and looking at the bottom here, obviously we can't mount this up as is because of these 2 cup holder mechanisms that secure the tray in the cup holders. But that's not to worry. We'll grab a T20 torque socket and unscrew these. Removing that screw should allow you to remove this. However, be careful, it is under tension. There's a spring inside which pushes these 2 parts out. I recommend grabbing a small flathead, prying it out, and watch out for that spring because it might go flying. As you can see, here's the spring that pushes out these 2 arms that secure the tray in the cup holder. We are going to want to pull this out, so just pop the spring out like that, and then also remove the 2 arms like so, and I'll repeat the same process over on the other side here. Alright, we've now removed all the components of this tray. We can push all this aside. We won't be needing any of these parts. As you can see, we're now getting closer to mounting up this board here, but there is still a bit of stuff preventing us from getting this mounted flush to the tray here. Now, you can use whatever method you want to remove this material. I think I'm going to use this pneumatic right angle grinder here. I am going to switch out this sanding wheel for something more abrasive, probably one of these 100 grit abrasive discs. Alright, we've got our all filed down here, and I intentionally roughed up the surface here, which is going to help us when gluing the board, which as you can see now fits flush to the bottom of the tray here. One thing I'm slightly uncertain about is this little silver piece of trim, which prevents my phone from sitting flat in here. There aren't any fasteners on the bottom here. I'm going to try using a small flathead screwdriver and see if I can't pop that off. Oh, perfect. Came right off, no problem. Alright, so we're all set to go in terms of affixing this wireless charging board to this tray here. Got my tape measure and a Sharpie, and I am gonna try to center this to the best of my ability. We do want to keep in mind that the coils aren't perfectly centered on the board. They're slightly offset, but I'm still gonna find the center of the tray here. Got the hot glue gun all fired up over here. Now, if we're thinking in the long term, it's probably best to use epoxy in this situation, but I do want to try this out first before I make any permanent decisions with epoxy. So I am going to start out with hot glue, as funny as that sounds, but I think it'll work out just fine. Especially because this doesn't have to actually make contact with anything, it's all wireless. So I don't think it'll prevent the board from charging the phone, but there's only one way to find out, so let's get to it. Alright, our wireless charging tray is all ready to go. Now we have to go hop in the car and pull off a bunch of trim to access a 12-volt power source. So let's get to it. We'll begin by taking a plastic pry tool. Probably want to pop open your center console here, and we'll begin by popping off this center trim. We'll then have our iDrive connector to disconnect right here. So simply pull that to release it, and we can set center trim and iDrive controller aside for now. We now have to remove our DSC button, driving mode button, and if your car is equipped, camera and parking sensor buttons by removing this piece of plastic trim right here. We'll also have to remove the plastic trim around the gear shift. Once you get the driving mode buttons popped out, press down on the connector. There are two push tabs on either side to release the blue connector, like so. And just a word of advice when removing this, as you can see, there are two push clips on either side. Here's one, here's the other. You'll need to push these in and depress them in order to release this. I got away with just doing the rear one, and I was able to access it by prying up this plastic trim just a little bit. I got my tiny flathead in there and I pushed it in, which released it, and I was able to pull it up and out of there. Just be careful. Of course, all this plastic is pretty fragile. Now, the reason for removing the center trim and these buttons is accessing these two T20 Torx screws, one located just under the buttons here and one right over here. Now, removing these screws should allow us to pull up this entire piece of trim here. Now, I am going to warn you, it's very tightly fit. It does take quite a bit of force. Pop it up there, and that will allow this entire piece, let me grab my camera and I'll show you. That will allow this entire centerpiece of center console trim to come up and out. We do have some wires underneath here. So we have to disconnect our 12-volt cigarette lighter, as well as the cup holder lights up here. Both of these are simple connectors. The 12-volt has two push tabs on either side, and the lighting connector is simply a pull connector. Disconnecting this will release the entire piece of trim, as you can see here. And most importantly, we now have access to a 12-volt power source right here. Alright, back over the workbench here, and I brought over the central piece of trim. Easy enough. And we've got our tray with the wireless charger, and I have some Velcro here, and I'll explain why in just a second. The one thing I did not account for with this is the slightly added thickness of the board. Obviously it's not very thick, but it does add some thickness to it. And the one thing I forgot is that the cup holders have this divider that is fairly elevated here. So the added thickness does cause this to be slightly above where it's supposed to be. Now, this isn't the end of the world. So just a side note, I went around the entire perimeter of the board with some hot glue just to better secure it and protect it. What we're gonna do is apply some of that Velcro. This actually isn't Velcro, just to clarify, it is Scotch fastened. So basically it's only hooks that hook together, opposed to Velcro, which is hooks and those little strands of fabric which wear out over time and get dirty. So this works wet or dirty. We're gonna apply a little bit of the Scotch fasteners right here on this divider, and we'll do the same on the bottom here. Not sure how I feel about applying it directly to the board. I don't know, we'll see how it works out. I might use a combination of hot glue just to protect these board components. I think it'll work out just fine. Alright, I decided to do 2 pieces here just to make it as strong as possible. As you can see, it really doesn't look that bad, and I'm probably going to have the charger in here the majority of the time. I just want to have that added flexibility of being able to remove it. Now, to apply the other pieces, I'm going to take the Scotch fastener or Velcro strip, if you will, and I'm just going to push it into place like so, get it all locked in, and then I'm going to remove the adhesive backing here, and then I can just simply place down the charging pad and the adhesive will be applied in the perfect location. Okay, so I've got my tray set up with my Velcro on the back of the board here itself. It's very secure on there, and as you can see, I have my Velcro in between the cup holders here. I did have to use my heat gun to heat up the adhesive because it's probably about 20-25 degrees out here right now. Just a little note, if you're applying this in cold weather, definitely use a heat gun or hair dryer to warm up the adhesive. So as you can see, I can mount this up right in the middle here, and it honestly looks pretty good. As you can see, you can still see the silver trim on the outside, and it's very securely mounted. It's not going anywhere, and it's very easily removable. Just pop it off like that, and if you want to use your cup holders, you're free to do so. Now this is all great, but we do still have to power the board, which is where this 12 to 5 volt step down and micro USB adapter comes into play. You'll see that it's a very basic step down. Just have some bare leads on this end, the step down itself, and then a right angle micro USB. So if I plug this in here, oh, of course. All right, let me zoom in the camera to show you this. Of course this would happen to me. So because of the thickness of the rubber around this connector here, it's not letting me plug this in. As you can see, it's too high up, and I don't want to bend the connector on the board. So there's a very simple solution for that. We're just going to file down the rubber on the edge of the connector here to give ourselves more clearance. Alright, let's give that a shot. Oh, perfect. Perfect fit. Look at that. I'm going to disconnect this just for the time being here. So now, of course, we need to power this step down. So very conveniently for this project, we can actually tap right in on this piece of trim rather than fussing around in that tight space of the vehicle. We have very easy access to this 12 volt wire, which is actually mounted up straight to this piece of trim, which powers our cigarette lighter. So that makes our life very easy. You can just work on the piece of trim right here. As you can see, there is slack in the wire, so we're going to pull it out of this little retaining clip right here. Just going to allow us to work on these wires more easily. I'll be using inline wire taps to tap into these wires. I think it's the easiest way to do so rather than cutting and splicing into the wires. This may be slightly challenging because the difference in gauges is pretty large here. These are some rather heavy gauge wires in comparison to these 24 gauge wires. We're going to give it a shot with this small red tap, and we'll see if it works. Alright, I have a little update here. I decided not to use this style splice connector. It didn't work out well because the thin gauge wire simply did not make contact with the blade. Switching over to a different style of splice connector. As you can see here, the style wraps around the wire like so. Use a male quick connect blade connector and slide it over like so, and it makes contact with the connector inside. Pretty cool. I think it'll work out much better. As you can see, that cleans things up really nicely. Now we just have to drill a small hole to run our micro USB through and into the cup holder area, then we're all set to go. Now, it would be ideal to drill a small hole about the diameter of this wire here, cut the wire, and then feed this wire through and rejoin the 2 wires. But I'm honestly not too confident in that because I'm not sure what the situation is inside this wire, what type of casing it has, what type of wire it is, and if it can be resoldered, which isn't the end of the world. It just means I'm gonna have to drill a slightly larger hole. So I'm gonna find a drill bit the appropriate size that's just big enough to feed this through into the cup holder area. Got that hole drilled. Let's see if we can finesse our connector through there. Looks like it's gonna be tight. Just file it down a little bit here. Yep, there we go. Alright, so now we got our micro USB through. We can plug that into our charging pad and mount it up right in here. So let's go reinstall this center console trim and we'll find out if this wireless charging pad actually works. Alright, so of course just the complete opposite of the removal here. We're gonna get this back into place, reconnect our two connectors on this center console trim, reinstall our two T20 Torx screws, reinstall our driving mode selection switch, our gear shift trim, and the center iDrive trim. Alright guys, I'm really excited. We have this all reinstalled. As you can see, went in very clean, no damages or anything. We have our Velcro pads and our micro USB that we wired in, our seemingly ordinary tray, our wireless charging board underneath, and our Velcro straps. So here's the moment of truth. We're gonna grab our cable. Bear with me here. Here we go. I'm gonna plug it in right now. Oh, yes, we have power. Alright, our board is on, as you can see through the hot glue there. Yeah, our board's powered. So let's get it in place here and I'll throw my phone on there and see if it charges. And here's the real moment of truth. Let's see what happens. Just plop the phone down right on the pad. Boom. Charging. It's not disconnecting, and as you can see, it doesn't matter if it moves around in the tray here. As you can see, it'll continue to charge. It won't disconnect from the charging board, which is awesome. So if you're going around turns hard, it's not a big deal. It'll continue to charge. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make a wireless charging pad for your BMW. Please leave a like below, subscribe if you've yet to do so, and I'll see you guys next time on JD Cars.